Welcome to the new year and a new edition of Faith Works Live. Very excited. Well, my name is Rebekah Haynie, so yes, I'm about as excited as I always am about that status quo. But glad to be with you on this fine day in the year of our Lord. And I always like to say it's the day the Lord has made, so we can rejoice and be glad in it. And it's not just because my mom woke me up with that song from Sunday school every single day of my young life, but it's true. There is always a reason to rejoice, and sometimes it's a little more obvious than others. I like to say that in particular, early in the morning, there is reason to rejoice, but maybe you just haven't had the right amount of coffee yet. Now, I am extremely excited for all the new opportunities that God has set before us, and we're walking into them in this new year, and a lot of new ways to connect with us, to connect with the show, because honestly, I want to hear what you have to say and what you think about, all the craziness that we get into, from theology, which we absolutely love, discipleship, what it looks to serve Christ in this day and age, and what it means to be the people that God has made for this particular generation to serve him. Now is a unique time. There's a lot that we can learn from history, but God has made us for this moment. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And I don't have all the answers, but that's why I talk to very smart people. And I am thrilled to be joined by a couple of smart people here in my studio. Our esteemed friend and pastor, Dan Hudson from Pathway Church in Johnston, a voice you know and love. Hey, Dan.
Hey, good to be here.
And also, twice esteemed pastor, Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ. I have to say that because, he sees me like every Sunday. So, hi,
Hola.
Mike. And very familiar and welcome voice. It's always great to have you back on the airwaves, Mike.
Sure. It's good to be back.
I like it. It was confident in that. There was confidence in that.
Okay. Sure.
It was all
Got nothing else
right.
happening right
It was
now.
good.
So.
It was pretty good. So, we're thinking about all the ways in which God has set forth new opportunities. It's kind of that new year. And we'll talk a little bit about where God is taking you in our teaching at the fort over the coming year. So that's going to be exciting. And I know that you and Dan have worked together on lots of different service projects and things like that. So I thought we'd lead off by discussing a recent trip that you were able to take, and Dan intended to take, but unfortunately sickness prevented him.
I overslept, yeah.
But
About
no.
4 days.
I'm glad you're feeling better, by the way,
I'm feeling
Dan.
great, yeah.
I'm glad. Also that you're 6 feet away in case of contagion. So that's really good for me.
Fred, he's like 4 feet.
We'll see how Mike's feeling next week.
You're in the circle. You're in the circle. So if you've heard of a zombie outbreak that started in Des Moines, we have alibis.
Yeah.
But Mike, you were able to go, and people will recall, and it'll be fresh in our minds that recently there were some very uncharacteristically both seasonally and destructive storms that have swept over much of the Midwest, and did an awful lot of damage. People's lives were uprooted, their homes smashed, destroyed, businesses, it's the nature of the storm. And so very damaging tornadoes that just ripped through whole communities, loss of life, and just terrible situation. And that's terrible anytime that it happens, but I think this specifically caused so much destruction. And you were part of a group of God's people that said, this is an area where we can make a difference, where we can be, we talk about sometimes the hands and feet of Christ, but what do they do? Like, what do the hands and feet of Christ do? Well, in your case, you decided to actually go and be present and make a difference, in particular in Kentucky. So, yeah, let's talk about that. What did you see there?
Yeah, well, the storms came through. It was December 17th when it occurred. And that tornado went, I think, a path of almost 250 miles. It hit several states, including Missouri, southern Illinois, parts of Indiana, but mainly Kentucky is where we know most of the damage was, and even parts of Tennessee. And so, I mean, this affected tons and tons of, geography, but also people and lives. And so we went to work in Bowling Green, Kentucky. In the city of Bowling Green, there were 17 people that died. And Mayfield, which kind of became the face of this, there were 23 people that died in that city. Not that you're comparing well, they had more. It's not that at all. It's just giving you a reference point to let you know. Yeah, and these are not, Bowling Green is a town kind of like Ames in comparison. So if that gives, the listeners or anything kind of a mental snapshot, you don't expect a tornado to ravage the city of Ames. You just kind of don't, you know what I mean? You think of it on farm fields and, outbuildings and stuff like that, but you don't think about a city that has that kind of an impact. And there's, large swaths of the city that are fine, that are untouched. And then you drive and you turn one street and all of a sudden it's like, wow, what happened? It's insane. But we went down to work and we worked out of Bowling Green Christian Church. It was a pretty neat experience. We actually stayed in a town an hour and a half away, Campbellsville. We thought it was only 45 minutes away. Nope, it's an hour and a half away. So we had to, and Bowling Green is in one time zone, and Campbellsville, where we stayed, is in another time zone.
Oh, that's fun.
And here's what's really fun, when they start at 7 a.m. and you think, oh, okay, we got to leave at 5 so we can get there on time for the morning devotions and breakfast. And you actually leave at their time at 4. You're leaving at 4, so you're getting there an hour early, so you get to sit in your truck for an hour before anything even begins.
Is that a math mistake?
Oh my goodness!
Is that a pastor math mistake?
That whole time zone thing, going back and forth from Eastern to Central, was it was messing with everything deep in my soul. But
I wasn't programmed for this.
I know it was wrong. But anyways, we got there. We did work. And I genuinely was really excited, but I had no idea what to expect or what to think. We went down and brought with us chainsaws and sawzalls and scoop shovels and just stuff to go do stuff. But what we mainly kind of ended up doing was building these sheds with a group that's called International Disaster and Emergency Services. IDES, as they are endearingly known. IDES does this kind of work all the time, all over. In fact, when we had our Midwest hurricane here, and the derecho, the word we never had heard before, came through Iowa, IDES was in Cedar Rapids doing a lot of work. I never even knew that they were here, and so that's just really cool. I am so blown away with IDES and the work that they do and who they are as an organization. And I'd encourage you to go. Just Google International Disaster and Emergency Services and go check them out as an organization, because they do work not just here in the States but all over. And the cool thing about IDES is that they work with pastors and the church directly. And so when you give $5 to IDES, and you want to help out with a tornado situation or whatever, every cent of that $5 goes to a pastor in a church to work in that community wherever it's at. So every penny of every dollar goes to the front lines. And that's really cool, knowing that, because there's other organizations that do stuff, and it's not, I don't want to belittle what they do, but it's kind of cool that you can support an organization that these guys are doing it. They're not just taking money from you and, we got to pay for our staff, we got to pay for overhead, and we're doing the work. Anyways, we built these sheds with IDES, sheds, 12 by 8 shed, 12 foot long, 8 foot across. And it's well, why would you build a shed? What's up with that?
What's the impact of that? Yeah.
What is that all about? Well, when places that we worked, literally, the tornado had completely left nothing but a slab. And so when you see these homes, it's it exploded in hundreds of yards in every direction. And so that's an insane sight, just coming up upon that for first and foremost. But then the way that they do the how do you pick up from that is that they literally have crews of people that come in and start just putting stuff in piles. Okay, this is a debris pile from the house. This is just construction debris. This is furniture, and this is, car parts, and so they literally start making piles of stuff that try to separate things into piles. And then here's the deal. Even at the site that we were working at, the night before we started, there were people that came and stole these people. They had some canoes and kayaks, and people came at midnight and just took their canoes and kayaks, stole them. Because that's what they do. They just drive around. There's piles of stuff everywhere. It's like, oh, there's a cool looking thing. I'll take that. And so it's so sad. It's so insane that there would be looters. But the reason we build the sheds are built, and they have built a lot of them right there in Bowling Green and all over Kentucky, is they put them on these people's property, and then if there are valuable items, they can lock them away in the shed, and these other piles can just then be scooped up by big construction equipment, thrown in the dump trucks to be taken away to the landfill. And that's how they can sort this stuff. But any valuables then, they can actually lock away, because they literally, there's no structures. How can they lock it away? Where is there, so they put these sheds out there so that they can keep some of their valuables protected. And I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have ever thought of that. You know what I mean? But we helped with 3 sheds, and 2 of them kind of finishing up, and 1 of them from beginning to end getting to complete that. And that was just really, really cool, being able to be a part of all of that. And in the midst of that, there were some incredible, just stories and people that we got to meet that, it just blew me away.
Well, let's get into that, if you don't mind. And I was wondering how much time you get to spend with the homeowners. Did you get to meet the people that you were working with, or the folks that are trying to pick up their whole lives, and you're there? Did you get a chance to develop any kind of relationship or rapport with them?
We did meet family members on one site, and another site we met the actual homeowners, and actually got to circle around them. Our group did, and we prayed with them, and hugged them and cried with them, and they were incredible people. The one couple that we met, that they were the homeowners. And keep in mind, like, these guys, their homes are leveled and destroyed, and so they'll drive towards their property just to see, are there looters there, or there, what's going on. So they kind of keep an eye out, keep checking, making sure their stuff's okay. And so that's what was going on. We're out there in the back of their property, and we were finishing up this one shed, and they saw people, and they're like, oh, okay. So they pulled up just to make sure, and then they were like blown away.
Are you guys legit?
Yeah, right.
Legit or looters?
Yeah, but this couple, and I'll just tell you their first name, not their last name, but Toy and Sid. Toy, I know that's a weird name. I mean, she's a lovely lady, but I've never met a woman named Toy. But anyways, Toy.
So she's one of a kind.
Yes.
That's how you market that.
Yes. But anyways, Toy and Sid, they were such lovely people, and they actually were a little bit older. I'm thinking like Dan's age, but
so really old.
Yes. But they were so sweet, and she told the story of what happened. They knew, they had, ample warning. I mean, they knew things were happening. Oh no, the tornado's here, and and so they went into their home, and they grabbed together, because they didn't have a basement, and they grabbed a door frame, and she's holding on to her husband's holding on to the door frame, and she said that they heard the attic fan like just shoot out of the attic, and then all of a sudden they could like feel the whole house, and then the whole roof in one shot just went off, the whole roof. And then the walls started going. And she said she's holding on as tightly as she can, and she said, I was yelling my prayer. And she just is saying, Jesus, please save us. Jesus, please help us. Jesus, and she's screaming out to Jesus, holding tightly to her husband, and, and they can feel their house just crumbling. She said, all of a sudden when the roof went, we both felt the air start to lift our feet up. And so they're getting lifted up off the ground, and she's screaming out this prayer out loud. And she said, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is it. This is how we die. This is the end. And then all of a sudden, she said, her husband said, honey, you can stop praying, because it was done.
Oh, wow.
It was all over. And there's no walls, and they're just standing there holding this interior door frame that did stand, and they're alive.
Wow.
And they were, and she's, they're crying and hugging and, but she said, we made it, we survived. And right around the corner, the street, literally right next to theirs, was where 12 of the 17 people died in Bowling Green. And we drove around the corner and drove into that, and one home had 7 people taken. And of that home where the 7 people died, one of the 7 was a little girl. She was 4 years old, and she was the last body they were trying to recover. And Toy was just telling me this with tears just streaming down her face, that the firemen and the cadaver dogs, they were searching, all over her street. Even they're going into every standing structure, any attic, anything that was left. And she said they had cadaver dogs all over her property. The firemen were all over her property, because you don't know how far this tornado will carry a little body like that. They did end up finding the girl's body, so that, she was accounted for and everything. But 7 people in one home right around the street from this house. And the thing that blew me away, there's 2 things about the people that we met, that we talked to, that was like overwhelming to me. One of them was, they both, all of the people we talked to said the same thing. One is, I'm so grateful that I'm alive. God, protected us, and I'm so grateful. The second thing was, here we are doing work to help these people whose homes are obliterated, and they say this, we just feel like there's so many other people that lost so much more than us. We don't feel like we deserve this, just you could be helping so many other more deserving people than us. And that just like blew me away, that, I don't know, it's amazing. But, I've seen pictures on TV of tornado damage. I've seen it. We've all seen that. But it is so different when you're standing in it and you're talking to these people and looking in their faces and just seeing it. And it was such an experience. There's more stories that I have for you, but that gives you a clue in of the impact of this. At least in my life, it deeply impacted me just going down there for a few days to do what we did. It was incredible.
Well, and that's an incredible story. I was just the ability to picture that. I mean, thinking about being in the eye of the storm, which is something we say sometimes. It's usually metaphorical. In that case, it was literal. Right. All right, Lord, you are with me in the eye of the storm, and everything is entirely out of my control, and anything that can be shaken is being shaken. And the only reason that they're still standing is by the grace of God. And that is something that just, I can feel in the story that you're telling, the fear that could overtake you, but they clung to their faith instead. And that is an amazing image. I think that we will take a break at right this moment, because I got a little misty, so I don't know about you, but I need to just reach that really quick. It is amazing to be joined by Pastor Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ. Also in the house, Pastor Dan Hudson from Pathway Church in Johnston. So esteemed company all around me. My name is Rebekah Haynie, and you're listening to Faith Works Live. Be right back. Now is the time to stand for life. For 50 years, Iowans for Life has been the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they stand strong today as Pulse Life advocates. They believe in defending the defenseless, and that's what we need now, a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life from fertilization till natural death. They advocate at the Capitol, in classrooms, at events across the state of Iowa on abortion, on family planning, on physician-assisted suicide, euthanasia, basically every issue where the culture is so contrary to what God calls us to. They're standing in the gap as defenders of the defenseless, and they're a voice for the voiceless because they believe in the value of life. And if you do too, sign up for their newsletter and get involved today at pulseforlife.org. That's pulseforlife.org. Welcome back to Faith Works Live. I say welcome back. It's not like we went anywhere. We kind of did, but we're still here. We're still here. And very excited to be joined by 2 awesome guys, master pastors. Mike Demastus from Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ. Can't get that wrong. I can't.
We should do a pulpit swap.
with
we
pulpit
should.
swap.
We've never done
With
it.
We've
Dan
never done that.
Hudson
Both of
from
our
Pathway
churches look
Church.
at us blankly like, what?
Who are
Yeah,
you?
I know, right? Says,
Why?
what did he say again?
What?
I don't get it.
Speaks a different language.
I don't
know.
get it.
Can you wake them up?
Mike was regaling us with some stories from a recent relief trip that he was a part of. It was he and a team of amazing people of God decided we're going to take our willing hearts and our chainsaws, and we're going to go and help with disaster relief in Kentucky, which was hit particularly hard by really freakish levels of tornadic activity. And there was loss of life. There was a great deal of property destruction. In fact, I know some people in Campbellsville, some brothers and sisters, that they were really just floored by the amount of destruction, but they're also very strong in their faith.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, you were talking about kind of the almost like mercurial and unpredictable nature of these types of storms. And that
Yeah.
causes us to ask a lot of those hard questions, right?
Right.
And you were telling the story of this dear couple who, everything, their entire house and everything around them was destroyed. They were saved,
Mm-hmm.
but just, down the street from them, a whole family
Family of 7.
died. Their
Yes.
lives were taken by the storm, and that causes people to ask some potentially uncomfortable but definitely legitimate questions. Why does God allow this? Why would something like this happen? Why would this couple be spared, and why would this other family be shattered like that? So as a pastor, let me throw that grenade in your lap and ask, if someone comes to you and has these questions, how would you help them think this through?
I think it's a powerful question. I think it's one that people have asked for millennia. Jesus Christ was asked this very question, with the tower that had fallen and people had died, and with the man that was born blind, did he sin or his parents sin? I think that ultimately what you understand is that Christ's response in those things was, it rains on the just and it rains on the unjust alike, and bad things happen to good people, and bad things happen to bad people. That's just the reality. And it's we live in a broken, hurting world, and calamities and catastrophes do not discriminate. They just don't. And there were good people that were impacted. There were bad people that were impacted, and that's just the reality. And I think that that's what happened there in Kentucky. And what's wonderful about when an event like this happens, the wonderful things that can come out of it is that the church has the opportunity to stand up and rise above and say, hey, this is bad, but God is good. He's still good. Standing on that property, literally on the slab of their 2-car garage with Toy and Sid, and praying with them on just nothing but this concrete and just rubbish all around, which used to be their home. I was overwhelmed with their faith, just the faith of this dear couple, and I know that because that's all you got. You ain't got anything else,
Right.
You don't even got a change of clothes now. It's just all you got's God. And sometimes, God allows those kinds of things because he wants you to know, no matter how bad it can be, I'm still enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing, to have those lessons. It's hard to go through those lessons, but that's where the church stands up and is not silent and not also absent from the midst of those kinds of things, because people need to be able to see that, and sometimes they need to see it with your mouth shut. They need to see it with you with a screw gun in your hand and working and serving instead of you preaching and teaching, and that's I think what is happening, in those kinds of scenarios. We stood and just a prime example where we were the place where we were able to build the shed from beginning to end. That property, again, it was leveled except for the toilet and the shower stall, because those are the only things that were bolted down. Everything else, all 4 walls, the roof, there was nothing but a slab left. This property was right across the street from a row of homes, and all these properties on this side of the street were leveled, and on the other side of the street, literally right across from this home, they lost about 12 shingles.
Mm-hmm.
Their home looked great. It looked great, but they just lost a few shingles on their roof. I mean, and you wonder how can that be that can happen right across the street. I mean, and by the way, streets in Kentucky are narrow, too narrow. Somebody needs to write a strongly worded letter. But that is what happened, and just being there and seeing that. I mean, they don't discriminate. And I've heard so many weird stories. Tornadoes do weird stuff. They do. There was a story that we were told one of the mornings before we were getting ready to go out that on one of the properties where we were building one of the sheds, the guy who survived the tornado, his entire house was blown away except for his bed. And he was laying in his bed, asleep. And then he heard like these crazy noises and tried to wake up, but he couldn't like get up because stuff had fallen on him, and it was the ceiling and some of the construction debris. But he pulls it out, and there's no house. It's just his bed sitting there, and he was asleep in his bed. It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But tornadoes do weird stuff.
They do. They do. We ran into that, and I wasn't able to go on this trip we had planned. I bought a new chainsaw even, and I was all excited. Well, not excited. That sounds bad. To use it, but anyway.
We understand.
Yeah. Didn't go. But
You
we
still
went on
are
other
manly,
trips,
though, by
right?
owning a chainsaw. It makes you very manly.
You do have a new chainsaw. No one can take that from you.
We went to Oklahoma a few years ago, and it was the same type of thing. An entire neighborhood is wiped out, and you look across the street, and they don't even have a window broken. I mean, it's
Right.
like it's just like
Yeah,
that is so bizarre.
it was.
And so you see stuff like that, and flooding's different because like everything's just wiped out. But the tornado, you just don't know. One of the questions when I find myself going down that road of like something's happening, like man, why bad things happen to me? This doesn't sound very. I don't know. It's a little cruel almost, but I'll ask myself like, well, why not? I mean, which is
Right.
you probably don't say that to the person who's sitting there in their rubble, but it's a legitimate like, well, what am I really any better than my neighbor?
Right.
You know,
Right.
so they didn't even have a broken window. I lost my house. Well, did they deserve it and not me? And we kind of get a little self-centered sometimes and self-righteous maybe. And it's like I don't know if any of us are all that good.
Maybe you do, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and that
sounds
was
Calvinistic.
that
there, but,
Well, it's a good
couple,
question.
Toy and Sid. They genuinely, they even said this. We're a little older, and those were children in that home. Why
yeah.
couldn't we have gone?
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
questioned. You know what I mean? And they felt a little guilty that they were allowed to survive. And
that's a little more honest. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and
like, well, yeah.
And
Why not?
that's tough. But like I said, it goes back to, for me at least, first off, these are indiscriminate events, you
Right.
know, and you just,
It's the harsh reality of life.
yeah.
I mean, it's just what it is. And praise God, one of these days this life will be over. And
Right.
then,
This life is not all that there is.
Yeah,
This
right,
isn't-
right.
This is just the opening act, right?
By the way, and you said that word, but at the last site we were at, where we built that shed, in what would have been the kitchen, right on the top of the steps as you kind of walked from the garage into the kitchen, because there was nothing, but I mean, there's no walls, so it's just, you knew it was the kitchen by the flooring. The flooring was still on, but there was a game piece that said life. It was from the game Life, and I took a picture of it, and I posted it just because I thought, how just odd to me, how bizarre, because that is really what it is. In a moment like that, everything can be blown away from you.
Mhm.
Everything can be taken, even your very life. And from what I understood, the homeowner at this spot where we were building, we never met him. We met his brother. But at that spot, he had come, and they were trying to help him. Like, what do you want us to save? What do you want us to keep? And he just couldn't even answer. He just kept his head down, looking at his feet. Just couldn't even bear to
overwhelming.
look at his property, because it was just so overwhelming to him. And it I don't know, it's sad, but it's it's just hard. It's a hard thing, this whole trip.
Well, and I'm thinking about this in light of these kinds of philosophical, theological questions of existence. Why would God allow this type of thing to happen? I know, Dan, you and I talked about this in a previous show, that everybody recognizes that terrible things happen in life. And I think the question is, what do you do with that, and where do you let that lead you? Where does that search lead you? And if your question is about meaning and understanding that meaning, to deny God in the middle of that doesn't take away the hardship or the suffering. It just means you have a whole lot of suffering with no purpose and no meaning and no hope. So the question is, are you willing to be open to hope in the midst of that? Are you willing to say, yes, there is a God who does care and who is near to the brokenhearted and who is actively making all things new and redeeming the groaning creation, and who has already acted and is continuing to act to bring to fulfillment all that's going to someday make it right in this world, so that meaning that we're searching for will be fulfilled. This feeling that things are not right, that they're off, they're not, that this isn't the way that it should be, that God is actually fixing that. He has and is and has and already has taken care of everything that's now just playing out to fruition. I mean, to me, that is a place to take comfort. It doesn't mean that we don't hurt when horrible things happen, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be with the broken in their suffering, when they're hurt, when their houses are gone, when they lose loved ones, all of those things. It doesn't take away those questions, I guess, but it does say, yes, there's still a reason to hope in the middle of it, instead of just sitting down, I guess, in sackcloth and ashes and putting dust on our heads and saying, woe is me. Yeah, I guess this is all that there is. So, I mean, maybe that's another element, another layer to the thought.
One of the wonderful things about being down there too was when we were at the church in the morning time, when they're kind of, okay, we want this group to go there, want that team to go there. The people that we met, met some folks from Oklahoma, down in Texas, just outside of Dallas, met a guy from Colorado, met a person from Tennessee, met some people from Kentucky. There were 41 guys there that were there. So actually, I shouldn't say guys. There were 2 teenage girls that came to with a group of another church. But that it was just impressive. That many people had come from around the country to come and do this, and none of them were there like, oh, I want it noted that I'm here. It wasn't there for that. These are just people that came to help.
I still have some pretty good friendships from people I've met in that type of situation.
Yeah.
We're camping out at a church. I just got a message from one today about something going on, and it's just kind of cool. It really is.
And it's really neat, to have that camaraderie built with these people, and to be just impressed with, the fact that, these guys have families and lives and jobs that they're sacrificing from to come and do something like this. And what the cool thing is at least in my experience with the people that we were able to serve and see and meet, they recognize it. Because, when you're there in Kentucky and you're in somebody's backyard building a shed, and they're like, so where are you from? I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. And they're like, what? Des Moines? And you came here? Yeah. That hits people hard, and that's, as they should be impressed that I did that. No, just kidding. I just think that there's something about that is part of the healing. That people know, man, people care about us. We're not alone. And I just,
God brought someone from 12 hours away, 10 and a half hours away to come help you.
Yeah.
You're not alone in this.
Yeah. And that's a powerful message, and I think that's really, really neat. And I don't know. It was a blessing big time personally to be a part of such an endeavor.
And you mentioned Ides. So maybe we can just refresh people's memory on how they could get connected with an organization like this, so that we know for sure there will be future opportunities to serve in this way. Sadly, there's a lot of natural disaster, and we've seen, again, so unseasonable. It's just unusual for this time of year, especially. But I mean, every spring and fall, basically in the Midwest, we know what that means, and there's much opportunity to help. So what is a good way for people to get connected, just to keep it in their minds?
Right. I would encourage to go to their website, which is ides.org. IDES.org. And so like when there's a disaster like there is in Kentucky, you can go there and they'll typically have right on the homepage, tornado volunteer work or tornado relief work, and you can click on it, and then they'll have like it organized and do you want to serve this week, and here's a date that you can come and serve, and here's the church we're going to be working with, or blah blah blah. So it's kind of neat that there are people that kind of get that stuff organized, and people just come from all around the country, and of course you're responsible for pretty much everything. I mean,
Right.
your gas and all that stuff. Yeah. And I do want to say this. I want to point this out. We had some folks in our church that knew we were going. And so they couldn't go, but they wanted to help. So they gave us, I had a couple different things happen. I had $1,000 that was given total. 500 of it was given to us by 3 different individuals, given for the specific purpose of this is to pay for your food and your gas. And so it actually, the total with our food and our gas was $584. And so we were able to split up $84 between and that's how much it cost us to do this trip, which was cool.
Yeah.
And then the other 500 was given to me to give to somebody that I felt that could use it. And that money went to Toy and Sid. And that was kind of cool, to be able to help them like that in just a special little way. But, that's the other cool thing about this is that it gives people an opportunity, even if they're not going to go, a way to kind of get involved.
Yeah, there's goers and senders.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and there's always a place to get involved. And I think that's one of the things that, in particular, we've seen a lot of our lives go virtual. Mm-hmm. And so there are, sometimes we can Facebook like our way into feeling like we're being a part of something.
We've raised
but
awareness.
that,
yeah,
I raised awareness.
I changed my profile picture.
Look at that.
I've changed the world.
I'm a warrior. But I think there's that urgent longing within us to actually do something.
Pick up a
And
hammer.
maybe you can show up with a chainsaw. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. I don't know.
I took my
I don't know
chainsaw
if the
and
world
didn't
will
get
be
to use
safe.
it once. So,
Aw.
but no, it's all right. It's
There's
a
always
Black &
spring
Decker
back.
battery powered one, so it's not like it was real powerful.
Those
Anyways,
fallen trees are like, yeah, Mike.
Sure that ladder's steady.
I could do about 1 inch in diameter. That was my limit. But no, we did the shed building basically, and we did one other project. Actually, it was the very first thing they sent us out to do. They're like, hey, we need a small group over here to go over here, and it was this woman in a neighborhood that was pretty well standing, honestly, except there was a lot of tree damage. And it was her dad's house who had died 2 weeks before the tornadoes. And so all along the street, like in front of the homes that are still standing, was a whole bunch of giant piles of debris. If you remember the derecho here in town, that's kind of what happened, with us. But so we went to her home, but one of the branches had punctured a hole in her roof. And it kind of pushed a bunch of like insulation and ceiling stuff into her dad's garage. And she was by herself. She didn't know how to take care of it. It literally took our group, no kidding, 10 minutes to deal with this. Mm-hmm. And so we got a ladder up. They got up there. They put a little 6x8 tarp and nailed it in, on there. And then we cleaned up the debris in the garage. And she was just crying, just because she didn't know how to deal with it. Yeah. It was bigger than her. But it was like a tiny thing.
Yeah, but it's not like she could just call a contractor.
Right.
Because they're kind of busy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so, it was funny because he's like, hey, guys, this is not a big thing, but it needs to be done, because this woman is hurting in a big way.
Yeah.
And, so we got to go help that woman. And, again, that was really, really cool, and just get to hug her and pray with her. And wow, that was nifty. Here was one other side story. In one of those neighborhoods, in fact, it was in the neighborhood where the 12 of the 17 had passed away. But there was a whole stretch of homes where roofs were not totally taken off, but the homes were still standing, but like shingles were you could see bare wood. And somebody on that street worked for a billboard company, because there was like 6 homes all right in a row that had old billboards, like the covered billboards covering their roof. Because it was really weird when we drive up and you see a woman like smiling on somebody's roof, and and like somebody holding a guitar on another one. It's like, what is this? But it's because they use billboards to cover these roofs like tarp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was what a great way to deal with the old billboards, to cover up these roofs.
You use what you have.
Yes.
That's very Midwest. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, actually.
Oh goodness, Mike Demastus is sharing ways that he and a whole group of God's people were just helping to reach out. And again, something that you said earlier, Mike, is we're able to share the gospel and share Christ's love. That doesn't always mean gabbing it up with people.
Right.
That means that you can show them. Now, I believe that it is necessary to use words as well. Go figure. But this is a way in which God is clearly demonstrated through his people. That we love because he first loved us. So when you have those discussions like, well, why you came from all the way across the country, like why would you do that? And your answer is, well, because we care about you. Because Jesus loves you and we want to help. We want to help. And that, I think, is just one of those things that has been maybe overlooked in our super sophisticated age, just the simplicity that has always worked. That when you're there to serve with the people who are hurting, like that's what God calls us to. And I don't think we can get like too smart or too technologically advanced beyond just doing what we're here to do. And that's what we're here to do.
I don't want to sound too nationalistic, but I think that it's something sweet about America. When something happens, that Americans rise up and they do help their fellow citizens, because we didn't care about politics or who's a Christian or who's a non-Christian or, we got to make sure these are Church of Christ folk we're helping. I mean, it wasn't anything like that. It was, right. It was just, you're there to help people. And, who cares anything about the situations in their lives or their thoughts or their beliefs or anything. We just wanted to help. And that really, I think, impacts people more than anything when you do that. And I think, I don't know. I think probably other countries have some of that, but I like America, and that us Americans like to help each other. When the push comes to shove, we do. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
That sounds very similar to de Tocqueville, if we can get into that on the other side of the next French, less than impressed with religion in general in his personal life, but he said one of the things, like 200 and some years ago now, one of the things that makes America great is her goodness. Is the moral imperative that the people have to live together, to help each other, and to see one another as valuable, and that they were willing in their own communities to band together, basically. And he's like, this is how democracy in America is going to work. This is how it's going to work, because you have such a strong society that is held together by an understanding of God and human nature. And they say, well, if something needs to be done, we're going to do it. And to the extent that we have perhaps forgotten that, then something has to step in and fill the void. Sometimes that's government. Sometimes that's, a much worse solution that has come along. But I guess that's a show for another day. I just thought I'd drop that in there because it gives me the opportunity to say de Tocqueville, and I appreciate that. Thanks, Mike. We're going to take a short break. You're listening to FaithWorks Live. At FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with InnerVisions Healthcare. In unplanned pregnancy and STD situations, they offer help and hope. It's all confidential, and it's all free. If women are in a crisis pregnancy situation, they know that they can get real help at InnerVisions. Free pregnancy testing, free STD testing, free ultrasounds as well to see that inner vision. Because women deserve the truth about their bodies, about their baby, about all of their options. And if a woman has gone down the road of seeking abortion through medication and she regrets that decision, InnerVisions also offers abortion pill reversal procedure, which is a life-saving, miraculous option to have right here in our own community. InnerVisions Healthcare, well worth supporting, providing those free services to women in crisis pregnancy. You can call them 24 hours a day at 515-440-2273. That's 515-440-2273. When you love people, you cook them tasty food. And there is no tastier food for my money and for my family than Anonymous beef. And they are so good at what they do. It's naturally raised beef. And in fact, there's several opportunities. You've had to be on a wait list because of how good and how popular their products are. Well, now there's new opportunity right now. Act now to get your Anonymous beef. There's no steroids or antibiotics. It is all natural, farm-raised butcher beef. And you can pay processing at the locker fees. They help
walk you through all of the process. It's a little bit different than going to the grocery store, but it is well worth it. You get great value for your money, and they help walk first-time customers through the whole process. Now is the perfect time to provide great quality food for your family, and it just doesn't get better than Animus Beef. So go to their website and start looking at your order today, whether it's half a cow or freezer full, whatever you need to fit your family, they'll help you out. It's animusbeef.com. That's OHNEMUS beef.com.
We're here in the home stretch. This is FaithWorks Live. Very glad that you're with us, and very glad that you've taken this slice of your life just for this moment, and that we're part of your patchwork of eternity. And we're here to glorify the name of God in our day and age, and to discover what it means to be his peculiar people. I guess we'll put it that way, because, that seems to fit this crowd that we're in. Proudly peculiar people. That's going on our list of swag. We've got a list of swag. One of them is that shall occur, God willing. One of them is lawn chair theologians. Dan came up with that one. And I want a T-shirt that says that.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
I don't remember half the stuff I say, though, so that's good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remembered it for you.
Thank you.
So
Thank
hopefully that wasn't something I was supposed to forget. Also, we're going to bring back the pirate flag.
The pirate flag, that's special.
Yeah, that's very special. So, yeah, the pirate flag needs its own lobby.
It does.
That's an inside joke for another day. But Pastor Dan Hudson from Pathway Church in Johnston has been an excellent co-arm of this discussion. Featured guest, Pastor Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ. And Mike, early on, and so I have to fulfill this promise, who said you've been working diligently on and very excited about the upcoming year's worth of focus at our church.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, that seems kind of unusual to me, to take one theme and go through the whole year.
It's yeah, you know what? I've never done anything like this.
Ready to experiment.
Yeah, right. But and I've known churches that have a theme for the year, you know what I mean? And usually what it means is you get a theme that you put on stationery, and that's it. Maybe the pastor preaches a sermon on January 1 for that, and that's our theme for the year. Each one reach one, and 2001, whatever your theme is. And which, by the way, that was my theme for 2001. But and I've never done anything more than that. You know what I mean? It's just a thing. But I wanted
one for 2020, and then it just.
Yeah, right.
I just quit. Yeah.
With strong vision,
Never
let's
mind.
fix our eyes in 2020 on
2020.
Jesus.
It's going to be the best year ever.
Let's see, 2020 vision. But no, I wanted to do something that would be kind of an all-encompassing endeavor. So I put together a group of people that I called my theme team. We started working in August, and I said I would like to preach on the life of David for a majority of the year of 2022. And what I would like to do is have this thing become a kind of an all-encompassing thing. So our theme is after God's own heart. And so I'm preaching on David and his life. And we've put together a men's group and a women's group. Actually, Rebekah is leading our women's group. They've named themselves endearingly Abigail's Posse.
We have.
And the men's group
Yes.
is David's Outlaws.
Our group is awesome.
Yeah, they are. But we'll just call them ABS for short. But we
It's
have
one way to get them.
ABS Posse. But we have, more than just this. I'm preaching on his life. We have the men's and women's groups that are meeting. We have some fellowship opportunities that have been purposely and intentionally designed to help bring our church together for things. We have service opportunities that we have put together. We also have children's ministry focus, studying David's life as well, that kind of mirrors some of the sermons and stuff that is happening, as well as kind of into the design of VBS this coming summer. And I did something really foolish, and I committed myself to write a daily devotion for each of the 73 Psalms that David wrote, which doesn't sound, it's like, so, okay, 73 devotions, that's a lot. Well, I decided to do it every day of the year, so 73 times 5 is 365. and I'm doing 5 devotions on each of the 73 Psalms that David wrote. I have at times thought, what did I get myself into, and all of that. But it's been one of the most enriching, wonderful experiences I've ever set out to do. I'm not saying this to say I'm uber spiritual or anything, but when I got done writing devotions for Psalm 22, I was just a wet puddle of tears. It was just, that psalm is the Psalm of the cross, and it's so powerful, and there's so much in that psalm, and I just scratched the surface of it, but it left me honestly just emotionally, because I've never jumped into that big, and that's right before Psalm 23, which, by the way, is a really cool psalm. And so, I mean, there's been so much that I have been so blessed by doing this, and so we have these daily devotions even that are studying the Psalms of David. There's no other person in all of Scripture where it was ever said that this person was a person after my own heart. And so learning about this man's life can help us kind of figure out maybe a better pathway to know what it looks like to have a heart after God. And so, that's the whole focus, the whole point of this. And so I don't want it to be just a thing after God's own heart in 2022. I want it to be something that we really try to pursue, journey on together. And so, we're doing that. And I've been, jumping in headlong, and you said, I'm excited. You're right. I have been excited because, it would be kind of a drag, wouldn't it, if I wasn't? I mean, like, yeah, we're doing this theme, guys. But I am excited about it because it's just been personally really enriching to me. And I think it's going to do something in the heart of our church as well, as we do this, as a church as well. And so, to put a plug in, but you can go to our website, godsfort.org. You can look at all of the devotions that have been released so far. There will be 10 of them right now, but they come out every day at 6 a.m. And, you can
But they're
check
still
those
fresh
out.
at like 8 when I read them.
Yes,
So,
they're still there. They're brand new at 8, actually. They're not even read. But all the sermons in this series will be up there as well. But, I just encourage you to do this, and you can jump on with us, kind of, even if you're not part of us, you can do your part that way. But it's been fun. It's been really, really cool. And I'm super jazzed about being in this.
So should I ask you again in like July?
Yeah,
This
right?
is still fresh and
I'm
fun.
so sick of David. David is so horrible. Anyways.
Well,
no.
David's one of those guys that, I mean, we all learned about him in Sunday school, right? But typically, and then a little later on, you find out some more of his story, and you're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
We
Well,
know, the
there's two
height
things.
and the
Yes.
lowest of the low.
Well, that's it. The 2 parts of David's life that we all focus on, his best and worst moments, Goliath and Bathsheba. That's it. But there's so much more to David than those things. And, that's why this is so much more and so much, more rich for me to get kind of into the nitty gritty. Because some of those most notable days are days that we really don't take time to notice. And that's what's cool.
So everyone can join in, no matter where you're listening,
Yeah.
and we can delve into Mike's madness.
Yeah, right.
No, it's going to be really great. After God's own heart is the theme, and honestly, that should be our goal. Like, as people of God, this is kind of what we're supposed to be about.
And you know what was fun, as an aside, just the theme team, working with all of you guys, just having the
pretty
group
awesome.
of people
Yeah.
having ownership over I want to do this. And we have an 8-foot tall heart on our stage. It was made out of, wood and what do you call it? Pallet board.
Pallet board.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
and it's painted and it looks really cool. And it's just this big, stupid thing. It's a neat thing. It's a big thing, but it looks cool. And it's just, you know what I mean? Just stuff like that. We got these wristbands, whatever. All of that is just kind of fun because people got involved and got excited and got, and it wasn't just Pastor Mike doing stuff. And I don't know. I guess that maybe every church should do stuff like that, get everybody involved at whatever level. But I don't really do that, if I'm being honest. It's kind of, I'm the dad with the, here, just give me the wrench. I'm that. And there's so much more enriching when you have more people doing things. Yeah.
I mean, acting like a body all together.
Yeah,
with
right?
Each person
Yes.
doing something.
Yes.
That could catch on. That could catch on. I like that idea. Pastor Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ, join in as we're doing the study after God's own heart. And Mike slaves over those devotions. And I know that, like a mom on Thanksgiving Day, she wants everybody to enjoy the meal. that she's worked for the last 5, 6, 7 hours to prepare. So that's just one of the reasons that you could be enriched. You could help Mike, but you'll also be enriched throughout this journey as we seek to, mimic that in our own life, to have that be said of us, that we are men and women after God's own heart. It does not mean that we will be perfect. And obviously David was far from that. And that's one of the things that's, as we've been studying for our group, our posse, that
Tonight,
there's
7 p.m.
it's going to be awesome. There's an awful lot of brokenness in David's story, and basically like all of his relationships with women, almost. His family dynamics, not so good. His track
Should have been
record
a monk.
with his kids, not so good. But he has this crazy combination of the heights of sublime and just being able to capture this beautiful conscience, this heart that's being poured out to God in the Psalms. He was also a warrior with blood on his hands. He was attacked, he was persecuted, and at the same time he did some persecuting as well. He was a man of violence, he was a man of poetry, he was a man, just like so many different elements of who he was. And in the midst of all of that, God looks at this weird, just strangely gifted but also contradictory man and says, I choose you. I choose you. You are my man to lead my people. And so much so that over and over again, Jesus, for example, is identified from the line of David, that he was the son of David, is one of those names for Messiah. That, Israel, that from their golden age, they were waiting for this son of David. And eventually Christ fulfills and, surpasses everything there in David's example. But in the midst of all of his failings, that would still be the thing that lives on, his legacy. I don't know. I find that pretty inspiring because I have enough failings of my own that I can point to and be like, okay, well, if David can still be after God's own heart, if that can be the legacy that he leaves, then I don't think any of us is counted out. I think no matter what we've been through, no matter what has been done to us or what we have done to others, that God is in the business of redeeming and then and really uplifting us to be the example that he, through his grace is allowing us to be. So very excited about that aspect of it. Come join in some of the fun as well. Pastor Dan Hudson from Pathway Church. Last word?
Yes, I do not have a plan or a theme for the year.
Oh, okay.
I have a plan for the next 6 months, though.
That's good.
good.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that as it becomes relevant. We'll talk about that. Pastor Mike Demastus, our excellent guest. Thanks so much, Mike, for coming in.
You bet.
Always
Thank you.
welcome. Oh, and you're doing podcasts as well.
Yes.
Should we tell people how to get those?
They are on our church website too.
Awesome.
The Demastus Road.
The Demastus Road, Conversations in Theology. There.
Yes.
So, yes, after you're done listening to our podcast, and you can go over and listen to Mike's. It's excellent stuff. Thank you. Thanks for being a part of this episode. We really couldn't do it without you because then we'd just be talking to ourselves in a padded room, which we can do, but it's so much better when you're here. It makes it seem normal anyway. So reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Questions, comments, commendations, castigations. We accept them all with equal weight. It is always our joy to be with you. You've been listening to Faith Works Live.